Welcome to the Rugby Obsession Deep Dive.
It's great to be here.
Next month, the South African Springboks could, beat England by 50 points, play a basically flawless 80 minutes of rugby, and still not gain a single fractional point in the global rankings.
Yeah, not a single one.
Yeah.
Which sounds totally broken.
It does. And if that sounds broken, wait until you hear the flip side, because a single slip-up in Christchurch could actually send the All Blacks plummeting from second to fourth in just a single afternoon.
Just free falling down the rankings.
Right. So before we get into all that, please remember to subscribe to the Rugby Obsession YouTube channel and newsletter from the link in description, because, well, the inaugural Nations Cup is here. And today we are unpacking the hidden high-stakes game playing out inside the World Rugby points exchange algorithm.
Because, the physical matches on the pitch are going to be brutal enough, but the mathematical landscape that's governing the top 4 teams right now is uniquely volatile.
Yeah, volatile is the word.
We're looking at a system that's literally designed to force equilibrium, which means the teams at the very top, they're actively being penalized by the math just for showing up.
Okay, so let's set the baseline before we break down the algorithm itself. Right now, the Springboks are sitting at number 1 with 93.94 points.
Exactly.
And the All Blacks are at number 2 with 90.33. So that creates a 3.61 point cushion for South Africa. And in the context of a zero-sum exchange system, that gap is like a massive structural moat.
It really is. It acts as an insurance policy. Like, a 3.61 point lead guarantees that South Africa's grip on the number 1 spot is totally secure through the opening weekend.
No matter what happens.
No matter what. Regardless of how badly things might go wrong against England or, how perfectly things align for New Zealand against France, the math just simply doesn't allow for a 3.61 point swing in a single round.
But the thing is, that insurance policy comes with an incredibly frustrating trade-off, right?
Yeah.
Rassie Erasmus has his squad hosting England at Ellis Park on July 4th, and then Scotland at Loftus a week later.
2 very brutal, physically demanding test matches.
Exactly. Yet the World Rugby algorithm dictates that the Springboks have zero upside here. Like, not a single point is on offer for a victory. So break down the specific mechanism that causes that ceiling.
Sure. So it comes down to 2 specific rules in the formula. First, the algorithm is a direct exchange. What one team gains, the other loses.
Right.
And second, the amount of points exchanged is directly proportional to the difference in rating points between the 2 teams before kickoff. But, and here's the catch, the algorithm caps that calculation at a 10-point difference.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. If the gap between 2 teams is more than 10 points, the system just considers the match a statistical mismatch. So the higher-ranked team gains absolute nothing for winning.
Wow. And we also have to factor in the home field advantage modifier too, don't we?
We do. The algorithm automatically adds 3 artificial points to the home team's pre-match rating to account for, the advantage of playing on home soil.
Right, so South Africa's base rating is 93.94. When you add that 3-point home modifier for playing at Ellis Park or Loftus, their effective rating jumps to nearly 97 points.
Precisely. And both England and Scotland are hovering far below the 87-point mark.
So because the gap exceeds that 10-point algorithmic cap, the system just completely shuts down any upward mobility for the Boks.
Yeah, they hit the ceiling.
It makes you think of like connected water tanks in a physics experiment. If you connect a highly pressurized tank to one with very low pressure, the water rushes to equalize.
That's a great way to look at it.
The algorithm is designed to drag outliers back to the mean. The Springboks' pressure is so overwhelmingly high compared to their UK opponents that the system literally installs a valve. They cannot take in any more water. They can only spring a massive leak.
The leak analogy is mathematically spot on, because the system expects South Africa to win easily based on that artificially inflated 97-point rating, right? So it punishes them severely if they fail to meet that expectation.
So if England goes into Ellis Park and pulls off an upset, say winning by 14 points or less, the data shows South Africa instantly loses a full 2 ranking points.
2 full points, yeah.
That is a devastating swing.
It really is. It is the absolute maximum base penalty the system can dish out. When the pre-match gap is over 10 points, a loss by the favorite triggers a flat 2.0 point exchange. South Africa drops by 2.0, and England gains 2.0.
Wow. So all that 3.61 point cushion saves the Springboks from losing the number 1 spot on July 4th. An upset would vaporize more than half of their safety net in just 80 minutes.
Exactly. They are playing a purely defensive campaign.
Which is such a fascinating psychological burden to carry onto the pitch.
Yeah.
Knowing that no matter how hard you dominate, The global needle won't move upward, but a single lapse in discipline costs you dearly.
It's all risk and no reward.
Right. Now, while the Bokes are playing algorithmic defense, the situation for the All Blacks is radically different. We are looking at extreme volatility. And before we dive into the specific point multipliers for the New Zealand versus France clash, please remember to subscribe to the Rugby Obsession YouTube channel and newsletter from the link in description.
We absolutely love breaking down these hidden tactical layers for you.
We really do. And being part of this community means you'll always be ahead of the curve. So tell me about the All Blacks scenario.
Well, the dynamics down in Christchurch on July 4th are the exact opposite of the Springboks situation. The All Blacks are hosting France, and France is currently sitting right on New Zealand's heels in the global standings.
Because the baseline gap between New Zealand and France is so narrow, the 10-point cap isn't triggered at all, right? The valve is fully open.
The valve is wide open, but the home field modifier still applies, and it heavily skews the risk. New Zealand gets that 3-point bump for playing in Christchurch.
Okay, so that pushes their rating higher.
Yeah. And because the algorithm now views New Zealand as a much heavier favorite than the raw standings suggest, the reward for a New Zealand win is actually quite suppressed.
How suppressed?
Well, if the All Blacks win a tight match by 14 points or less, they only gain 0.41 ranking points.
I want to look closely at the margin of victory there, because the 15-point threshold is like a vital gear in this machine. If New Zealand wins decisively by 15 points or more, their reward jumps from 0.41 to 0.62 points.
Yep.
That's a hard-coded 50% multiplier in the World Rugby algorithm, isn't it?
It is. A 15-point victory margin is the magic threshold that activates a 1.5 multiplier on whatever the base points exchange is. The algorithm basically uses that threshold to distinguish between a contested test match and just, total dominance. So New Zealand gains 0.62 points for a blowout.
But, 0.62 points barely chips away at South Africa's 3.61-point lead. That doesn't really sound like the extreme volatility you mentioned earlier.
Well, the volatility isn't in New Zealand's upward mobility.
Huh?
The volatility is in the catastrophic floor beneath them if France wins.
Oh, right. Because of the home modifier.
Exactly. Remember, the algorithm added 3 points to New Zealand's rating for being at home. If France, who is the lower-ranked team on paper, playing away from home manages to overcome that statistical deficit, the algorithm registers it as a massive anomaly.
And rewards France heavily.
Huge rewards.
Let me do the math on that swing. If France wins by 14 points or less, the base exchange is 1.59 points.
Right.
So France absorbs 1.59 points directly from New Zealand's total. New Zealand drops from 90.33 to 88.74.
And that mathematical drop has an immediate real-world consequence. France would mathematically leapfrog New Zealand in the standings.
Wait, really?
Yeah, the All Blacks wouldn't just fail to catch the Springboks, they would be unseated from the number 2 position entirely.
Hold on. It actually gets worse if we apply that 1.5 multiplier. Like, if France turns up in Christchurch and just puts on a masterclass, winning by 15 points or more, that 1.59 base exchange multiplies out to a staggering 2.38-point swing.
It's a massive.
New Zealand loses 2.38 points in a single match. They wouldn't just fall behind France. Ireland is sitting right there in third. A 2.38-point drop sends the All Blacks plummeting to fourth globally.
That is the hidden tightrope the All Blacks are walking right now. They have a fractional reward if they hold serve at home, but an utterly catastrophic algorithmic floor if they falter against the reigning Six Nations champions.
Wow.
It completely reshapes how we view the stakes of that opening weekend.
It entirely reframes the narrative. The media is going to build this up as the All Blacks hunting the Springboks. But mathematically, the All Blacks are actually fending off the wolves at their own door. The risk profile is wildly asymmetrical.
And this asymmetrical risk carries directly into round 2 on July 11th, which is where we enter what is effectively an algorithmic dead zone for the top tier.
Because the 10-point cap rears its head again. The All Blacks are hosting Italy in Wellington, while the Springboks are playing Scotland at Loftus.
Exactly. Even without the 3-point home modifier, the raw gap between New Zealand and Italy is massive.
Right, so with the home modifier, it's off the charts.
Right. Once you apply the home advantage to New Zealand, the statistical disparity is so vast that the algorithm doesn't even recognize a victory. 0 points on offer for South Africa, 0 points on offer for New Zealand.
It is genuinely bizarre that in a tournament as fiercely competitive as the Nations Cup, round 2 is just a mathematical placeholder for the Titans.
Just a pause.
Assuming form holds and there are no historic upsets, the global standings will be completely paralyzed that weekend. But that paralysis breaks violently in round 3 on July 18th.
Oh, absolutely. Round 3 is where the algorithm recalibrates based on the chaos of the opening fortnight. The All Blacks host Ireland in Auckland.
And Ireland is another heavyweight right in that top 4 cluster, which means the pre-match rating gap will be narrow, the 10-point cap is removed, and massive points are back on the table.
Yes, but the exact decimal points on offer will depend entirely on what happens to both teams in the preceding rounds.
How so?
Well, if New Zealand lost points to France, the gap between them and Ireland shrinks further, meaning an All Blacks win against Ireland would actually yield a higher points reward because the system views the match as more evenly matched. The algorithm dynamically adjusts risk and reward week by week.
That's incredible. I was actually looking at the permutations for these first 3 rounds to see if there's any mathematical reality where New Zealand overtakes South Africa before the end of July.
Yeah.
Well, assuming South Africa doesn't suffer a historic, unprecedented collapse against England and Scotland, can the All Blacks actually dethrone them?
The math is just unforgiving. If the Springboks win their matches, even though they gain 0 points, their 93.94 baseline remains completely untouched.
Right.
So even if the All Blacks trigger the 1.5 multiplier by beating both France and Ireland by 15 points or more, the fractional gains of 0.62 here and maybe 0.70 there, they simply do not add up to 3.61. New Zealand mathematically cannot overtake South Africa in the first 3 rounds without significant help.
So they need the Springboks to spring a leak. They need England or Scotland to trigger that 2.0 point penalty.
That is literally the only path to the summit in the short term. However, what New Zealand can do is systematically dismantle that 3.61 point cushion.
Right, chipping away at it.
Exactly. By securing high-margin victories over elite opposition, they can shrink the gap to just a fraction of a point, which sets up an absolute blockbuster scenario when they finally meet South Africa directly.
That brings up a critical layer that goes way beyond the spreadsheets. Like, how does its underlying algorithm dictate the tactical mindset of the players and the coaches out on the grass?
It changes everything.
Because if you're the All Blacks captain and you were up by 12 points against France in the 75th minute, you know that a 12-point win nets you 0.41, but a 15-point win nets you 0.62.
It fundamentally alters the late-game decision-making. I mean, in a normal test match, if you're up by 12 with 5 minutes left, you manage possession, you kick for territory, you bleed the clock to secure the win. The victory is the only metric that matters.
But the algorithm introduces a structural incentive to run up the score.
Exactly. Knowing that the 15-point multiplier exists, a captain might decline a safe penalty kick at goal that would only push the lead to 15.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, opting instead to kick for the corner and chase a tour, try to push the lead to 17 or 19, just to ensure that a late French penalty doesn't drop them back under the multiplier threshold. It encourages high-risk rugby in moments that traditionally demand conservatism.
And conversely, it incentivizes a defeated team to keep fighting purely for algorithmic mitigation. Like, if France is down by 17 in the 80th minute, the game is lost.
Right, the match is over.
But a final penalty kick brings the deficit down to 14. They lose the match, but they prevent New Zealand from triggering the multiplier, which effectively saves their own global ranking by denying the All Blacks those extra decimal points.
It creates a game within a game. Every single point on the scoreboard matters right up until the final whistle, not just for the outcome of the match, but for the global balance of power. The algorithm basically ensures there is no such thing as garbage time in test rugby anymore.
I am absolutely obsessed with how this math shapes the on-field psychology. I mean, we have the Springboks defending a statistical ceiling, knowing they are in a no-win scenario where survival is literally the only reward.
And on the other side.
Right, we have the All Blacks navigating a high-wire act where the pursuit of fractional points against France could result in a catastrophic drop to 4th in the world. It is a masterful, unseen tactical war happening right beneath the surface of the Nations Cup.
It's going to be a brilliant tournament.
It really is. We are embracing every single second of this upcoming season, and we want to hear your brilliant analysis on this. Who do you think will go into the iconic Springboks All Blacks tour as the #1 ranked side after these ferocious opening rounds? Will the All Blacks algorithmic moat hold strong against the UK challengers, or will the All Blacks navigate the French and Irish gauntlets and close the gap?
It could go either way.
Jump into the comment section below and let us know your predictions. We love reading your insights and debating these permutations with you. And as a final reminder, to ensure you are always equipped with the deepest analysis in the game, please remember to subscribe to the Rugby Obsession YouTube channel and newsletter from the link in description. Thank you for listening to the Rugby Obsession Deep Dive. and we'll look forward to you listening to our next episode.